Hello, everyone. Diana Rankin here with your weekly message from Phillip. And I have a couple of stories to tell you right in line with what Phillip is talking to us about this week. And this is about manifesting. Can we set dates on it, timelines on it, etc. And of course, we will get a message from Phillip later in a few minutes. This is an Oracle book, so each page has a different message. But before I forget, this is week 35, and this is for August the 23rd to the 29th. So that's our timeline, and I want to welcome everybody. I'm so glad you come, and I'm so glad you come back, and I love your comments. And I love your questions. You can email me, you can get me on Messenger at Facebook. Don't send a chat because I don't know how to do that. I haven't bothered to learn, and every once in a while I see, oh boy, somebody has sent me I guess it's how you talk on Facebook, back and forth. And so email, put the comments below, that works. That's a great way because I do read those. So anyway, we're going to look at this, what Phillip says, and then I'm going to explain, give a couple of illustrations of what he's saying that have happened in my life. So here we go. All right. The question is, Phillip questions the question from one of you. Thank you so much. When requesting help from Spirit, is it acceptable to include time constraints? That is, I would like to receive this within 2 days. If so, is there a correct way to do that? Well, that's a good question. That's a very interesting question, isn't it? Because, when we want something, especially those of us in America, we want it at a specific time, a specific date. That's just who we are. We tend to think left to right, linear. Sometimes we forget to look up or down and to really have that whole experience of life. We not only want to look left and right, we want to look up and down, especially at those clouds and those stars at night. So here's what Phillip tells us about that. Certainly you may request. The correct way is simply to make your asking clear. So certainly you may request. The correct way is to simply make your asking clear. Phillip's syntax sometimes I stumble over, as you've noticed. By this we mean it does no good to beg or cry or bargain, or by using any means other than a clear intention and grateful as though you already have it, and gratitude as though you already have it. And of course, do the work and be available. For example, let's say you wish to be gifted with a blue feather within 2 days. You set your intention, and I've got 2 blue feather stories to tell you after we read what Phillip has to say. You set your intention to find a blue feather by weekend's end. Then you give sincere gratitude for receiving the blue feather. You spend time in places where a blue feather may appear. You keep your eyes and heart open to the blue feather, but none appears. Let's examine why. Often we become attached to the outcome, thus pushing it away. This is most prevalent when we set a deadline. This is not to say you should never set a deadline, but you cannot demand it. And I think what happens a lot of times is we want something so much that we actually push it away because we keep saying, give it to me, bring it. And that actually pushes away instead of, as Phillip says, use the gratitude as though we already have it and just say, oh, thank you for this. I'm so grateful. So here we go. I think I read that. You cannot, but let me read it again in case I didn't. Another reason you may not receive, I didn't, the last paragraph. I lost my place. That's the part that says you cannot demand it. Another reason you may not receive your request within the allotted time is because you are not ready for it. For example, if you say, I want to find a blue feather within 2 days, but have done nothing to honor birds, your request will not be honored. If all you do is chase birds away, or you never smile and thank them for their song, or you always trash their feathers, or you understand our thought here. Whether asking for a blue feather or $1 million, you must honor and respect that which you ask for and know how to properly care for it. The steps that we have outlined clearly put include: number one, prepare yourself to receive by honoring that which you request. Number two, set a clear intent. Number three, say a prayer of gratitude in the present, not the future tense. Number four, be prepared to receive by being aware but not being attached to the outcome. And number five, receive with gratitude and honor the gift. I'm going to tell you actually three stories, two stories and one way that Phillip taught me about when you want to manifest something. And it's about baking a cake. He said, first you go out and you gather the ingredients to bake a cake. So you're going to gather flour and eggs. You're not going to gather a pen, for example, to put in the cake, but you're going to gather those ingredients that help make up the cake. Once you gather the ingredients, then you do the work. You put the ingredients together. And then, so you've set your intention, you've gathered the ingredients, you've put the ingredients together, and now you put the cake batter into the oven. That's when you give it over or surrender it to your higher self. Surrender it to the higher power, to universe, love, God, spirit, by whatever name. And then you sit back and you do the work of listening without attachment. So you're not sitting there going, come on, cake, bake, 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 bake. And you're not opening the oven too quickly, because if you do that, guess what? The cake falls. But if you don't hear the dinger, if you're not listening for the bing to go off or watching the timer, you're going to let the cake burn. So you have to live in awareness and gratitude of that cake already baking. And guess what? Then you end up with a perfect cake. Okay, several years ago, Richard Bach wrote a book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And in there, his guide, we'll call him, his guide told him that he could create anything he wanted. And so they were sitting at a counter, and the guide said, what do you want to create? And Richard Bach thought for a minute. He said, how about a blue feather? And the guy said, all right. And Richard Bach said, well, we're in a restaurant. Where am I going to find a blue feather? And the guy just, okay, let it go. And pretty soon, Richard reached over and he picked up, this isn't what he picked up, but I'll use this as an illustration, a bottle of, I forget now, ketchup or something. And it said blue mayonnaise, maybe, blue feather mayonnaise. And there was a blue feather on the jar. Well, I remembered this story, and I said, I'm going to go find a blue feather. And I lived in the city at the time, and I said, I'm going to go out into the country and out to parks and go for hiking and find a blue feather. I was ready to find my blue feather to prove to myself that I could create anything I wanted. Well, Sunday night came, and I didn't have my blue feather. I was working pretty hard finding that blue feather. Too hard, right? And so I got up. I was in the den, and I got up, and I went over to turn the light off and go upstairs and go to bed. And I heard my inner voice say, turn around. So I turned around before I turned the light off, and my kitty cat at the time took her paw and knocked over a basket of her toys. And guess what fell out? A toy with a blue feather on it. Because I had to give up. I had to say, that's it. I surrendered. I was trying too hard to create that blue feather. So that's one of my stories. And I know many of you who have taken some of my workshops or have had private sessions, I've told you that story. And I have another one to tell. And this one was, I was doing a year-long workshop, and we would meet once a month. And the assignment that month was for participants to come to the next month with a blue feather in hand. And so everybody came except one woman was missing, Vicky. And so everybody's there, and they're all talking about their blue feather stories, and they're all exciting because they manifested a blue feather. And Vicky came in a little bit late, and she had one hand behind her back, but in her other hand she had a whole handful of white feathers. And she said, "Will white feathers do?" And we're all laughing. Where did all those white feathers come from? And she said, "Well, I was driving up here, and at the time I would hold the workshops here where I work at my home where I live, and we have a workshop area in the barn. I call it the barn. It's actually, we call it the Eagle's Nest, and it's a finished barn. It's actually like a mother-in-law house. So anyway, we had the workshop there, and Vicky's holding all these white feathers, and she was telling us about her drive up here, and she was running late, and she was trying to pass. It's a 2-lane road, and it's about an hour drive from where she was to where we were, and she's driving behind this truck with all these crates, and suddenly she starts seeing all these white feathers fly out from the crates, and she put her hands out the window and grabbed up the white feathers, and she said, "I realized I was following chickens. The truck was full of chickens." So she said, "I got here and I thought, well, I'll just have to do the white feather. That'll have to do." And she said, as I stepped out of the car and I looked down, guess what was there? You got it, a blue feather. So I'm going to repeat these 5 steps that Phillip gives us for manifesting, because if you notice in these stories I've just told you, they all have the same things in common. Number 1, prepare yourself to receive by honoring that which you request, whether it's a blue feather or $1 million, or calling in your soulmate. Set a clear intent. Say a prayer of gratitude in the present, not the future tense. So thank you. I'm so grateful you're giving me this, or that you've given me this. Be prepared, and I like the future. I like the present rather than even the past. Be prepared to receive by being aware, but not being attached to the outcome. And that's really where we get in trouble, is we get so attached that we must have that, and we must have it by now. And we're just not ready to receive it then. And then receive with gratitude and honor the gift. I have several blue feathers on my altar, and I have several blue feathers here in my office. I should have brought one over with me, but that's all right. But I honor the feathers, and I love the sound of the birds. Oh, you can see one there in the background. So instead of bringing it over, I'll say, look for the blue feather. And if you find it, good for you, because you could see a blue feather right here in my office. And it's pretty clear. All right, shall we get our message this week? Again, it's an oracle book, so we just open to any page, and we think left page or right page. And if you thought right page, that's the page I'm thinking. That means our intuition is working together. If you got left page, that means this is, and I will read that as well. That's a message you need to pay attention to. So here's our right page. If the universe were limited, would it not have depleted itself long ago? If the universe were limited, would it not have depleted itself long ago? My friends, there is plenty for everyone out there. These are not easy times we're in, and we get caught in what's wrong instead of creating what's right. So remember, the universe is endless, and there's always something else we get to learn, and we can manifest that which we choose to manifest. On the left, I think this was our message last week too. When you abandon yourself to the genius of the universe, you become the genius. That's interesting that we got the same message. I'm pretty sure that was our message last week. When you abandon yourself to the genius of the universe, you become the genius. Thank you, my friends, for being with me today. I'm so grateful that you come and you come back every week. And I'll see you on Facebook, or I'll pick up your comments below. And until next week, thank you. Thank you for loving us and for accepting our love to you.